Hello, this is a quick look at the LEGO Creator 3-in-1 Street Racer for 2022. This comes with 258 pieces, and I bought it for the street price, the regular suggested retail price of $20 US, and built the thing live over on Twitch. I'm going to show you the main build here and also take a look at the pictures of the alternate builds for it. This is not supposed to represent any one specific real life vehicle, but there are probably a number of different types of vehicles out there that you can relate this to a little bit. Hot hatches of some sorts, although it does have a rather long, almost fast back to it. If you look under there, like it's kind of a hatchback. It's right on the edge. Big old supercharger with an inline engine for some reason. So I'm assuming it's supposed to be rear-wheel drive, although it's trying to look like it's all-wheel drive. The thing is not trying to look realistic, and I'm good with that. I do kind of wish that the tires were a little bit closer together. The color scheme is probably going to be rather polarizing for a lot of folks. I actually kind of like it. I think that it works. I think that it's brave, but it works. You got the striping between teal and light aqua up here, and then accents of red. That definitely works for me. This thing it has so much traction. It just begs to be played with, but it acts like it's never going to want to turn because it has such wide tires on it. And again, it gets so much traction. If you take this off here, it's mostly attached with just two studs at the back. It does have a cockpit area. It does have a suggestion of some interior detail, big old steering wheel there. Nothing is attached to anything. It's not a Technic set. Technically, you can put a minifigure in there. Technically, it's possible, right? Can't put it over one stud, so it's just a single one. And you know what? For a lot of kids, that's going to be great, and it's going to work perfectly fine. It doesn't look that bad there. Scale-wise, yeah, it's completely off. But the fact that it will accept a minifigure, I think is a very good thing. Too bad it won't accept two in there, but I get it. The construction for this is pretty straightforward, but very traditional, mostly traditional, very pure to the Lego system. Doesn't feel like it's from another manufacturer or something. It has a lot of fairly regular parts and a handful of just weird ones. You do have the suggestion of the cylinder heads that are angled off to the sides because they use hinges for that. Big old butterfly valve. So I'm assuming this is supposed to be supercharged. They even have a suggestion of a belt, a drive belt, pulley at least, up towards the top. And that's pretty much it for this default form. I don't think there's much else to say about it. One of the alternate builds is a hot rod. It's like a traditional T-bucket style roadster with a single carburetor there. And this also looks quite straightforward. It's another what you see is what you get sort of situation. The build of this is probably even more conventional than the standard form. This one can also hold a minifigure in there. Yeah, just one, but it's a little bit more difficult because this has a tiled off floor. Of course, you can always leave the tile out, and you might have some spare pieces that allow you to put some studs in there instead. But yeah, this is very straightforward stuff, and I think that it's a very good transformation from a very funky, super deformed kind of hot hatch looking thing to this. That definitely works for me. And then there's one other, of course it's a 3-in-1, so there's one other official alternate build. They do include the physical instructions for each. So this gives you an open wheel racer. Could represent an older Formula 1 car, Indy car. It's more of a Formula car. It's got the mirrors on there, which is good to see. Intake is centered, has a narrow low wing, so probably not so much Formula 1 unless it's a very high speed track there. But the build for this one, I'd say, is probably a little bit more advanced than the T-bucket was, the hot rod was. Just a little bit, a little bit more studs on the side construction. You can again put a minifigure into the cockpit, and I think that would work out just fine because you got plenty of studs there. You can also have the person sitting back a little bit. There's enough room. I believe there's just enough room to get them to be leaning back. And yeah, and again, at the end of the day, you end up with something that is respectable and is a complete transformation, complete change from the main build, and I think that's good. Also, the color scheme works out in spite of the very awkward, well, again, polarizing color scheme of this. Like, look, this uses mostly red and teal compared to the main build that focuses on the teal with the light aqua. This one goes with the red and the light aqua instead, and has just little accents of the teal. I think if you did a color swap, various color swaps of this, maybe using your own pieces or using this as the basis, you could get a lot of really cool things, possibly that you might even like better than this look, because the builds aren't bad. These are the only leftover pieces when you do the main build, and of course there were no stickers in this set. I think that $20 US is a fine value for this amount of stuff, because it's a good mass and volume of plastic, of good Lego plastic here. And you definitely get additional value from these alternate builds, because they're very usable, very respectable alternate builds. You know, they don't seem like afterthoughts. They almost seem like they could have been, no, they definitely seem like they could have been main builds for 3-in-1 sets from not too many years ago. You know, I think they're good enough. And it's the most surprising thing to me is how well the color schemes work for those two alternate builds. They don't feel like they're made from spare parts and random parts. So yeah, definitely a lot of, I think probably more work went into this design than it looks like on the surface, given how blocky this is and how somewhat unrealistic it is. So I think this probably deserves more credit than even I am giving it right now, to be honest. Just trying to use my analytical side and kind of take some of my own personal biases and desires for this to look more realistic out of the picture. You know, if I relax a little bit, I think this is a pretty good thing. And again, pretty good price at the very least. For folks who are really into creativity, it's a good value for that number of pieces and a good parts pack, as this proves right here. So there you go. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again very soon.